and welcome to the next episode of The Prestige, a podcast about films and filmmaking.
In each programme, we focus on a film, a particular movie our choice, and then sort of an idea loosely based around that, using this one film to kind of jump off and talk about larger ideas.
And then after some reviews and discussion, we'll finish off with a few recommendations. But first of all, who are we?
I'm Rob Maythorne. I spent the last 10 years of my life working in the film industry in Britain, working from everything from little no-budget shot on VHS films all the way up to multi-million-pound blockbusters.
And my name's Sam Knowles, and I'm a teacher and writer and teacher, and I write books about books, which Rob finds hilarious.
It's the little things.
Go on then.
So this week we are going to be looking at Die Hard. Die Hard, the 1980s classic, the film that established Bruce Willis in the collective consciousness, I think. Sam, your thoughts?
Yeah. Now you were very good to me last week, and I didn't entirely like the film that you loved, and you're very adult, and you dealt with the fact that I didn't like it very well. I'm afraid I'm not going to be extending the same courtesy to you this week. If you don't like Die Hard, I will hunt you down and find you.
Okay, that's some fervent love there, Sam.
Oh God, I love this film. So yes, I don't really know where to start with Die Hard. I would start with the music, which is even the music is a work of genius. The way that music is used, the initial meeting between John and Harley and Ellis, and it segues into the terrorists / robbers arriving, and it's an inversion of the Beethoven theme that accompanies them. It's just amazing. Everything about this film, which, as well, Rob provides a plot synopsis for people every week. I'm not sure people do need a plot synopsis, but let's go for one anyway. Die Hard is about the attempts of a current New York cop who's visiting his estranged wife on the west coast of the US and gets embroiled in a terrorist, what initially appears to be a terrorist takeover of the building in which she works, and in which there's a Christmas party going on. And if it were not for Die Hard 2, I would say this is the best Christmas film of all time.
Are you implying that you think Die Hard 2 is better than Die Hard?
No, I think Die Hard 2 is a better Christmas film than Die Hard.
Fair enough.
I think Die Hard itself is a better film, but I think the Christmassy elements of Die Hard 2 are just amazing. Anyway, Die Hard. Rob, your thoughts on Die Hard?
You'll be happy to hear I love Die Hard.
Good!
Die Hard, to me, I don't know if Sam's the same on this, but I have boxes in my head in which films live. Some films go in the same box together. So, in my head, The Rock and Con Air are in the same box.
Yes, absolutely. Yes.
And in that kind of box, I would say, the king of that box is Die Hard. Die Hard is the first action film that I loved.
Yes.
To me, it is the archetypal action films from which all modern action films flow.
Yes, yeah.
So I think it is A, a great film, and B, I think it is a very culturally important film. This is where my film degreeness comes out. But I think that it marks a massive turning point in Hollywood and its relation to action films, especially in the 80s. But we'll come on to that a bit more in the discussion side of things. But I do think it is perfect. I think that almost everybody in this film is perfectly cast. I think Alan Rickman is, to this day, one of the best bad guys ever. I do think it probably eclipses his turn in Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves, which is often well known for as a villain. But I think Hans Gruber is perfect. I think Bruce Willis is perfectly cast in this role. I think his wife, all the sort of bit parts are right. There's a little bit of I have a a slight misgiving about the weird mid-film bit where the cop relents his story of having to shoot a kid. I think that's a low point
Yeah.
in the high energy of the film.
Yes.
But I think that when it focuses back on Bruce up in the high rise, I think it is as close to a perfect action film as I know until I saw Mad Max.
Right. I'd agree with you that there is a little bit of a lull around the whole Al and relating his problems, but I also think that that bit is central to something we tentatively discussed talking about this week, and it was we had two ways to go with this, and one was the idea of a quintessential action film, and the other was the idea of masculinity on film. And I think that sequence between John and Al, or Roy and Al, is absolutely key to this idea of masculinity. I suppose that there's a lot politically to talk about, and it dates somewhat. And the idea of killing a kid is something, well, I suppose is still uppermost in the American consciousness. The idea of accidental cop killings is something very American, and it's not something that we can really get our head round to the same degree.
I think in Britain we probably had one of those, and it still has repercussions today in recent years.
Yeah. I think though that it's very interesting how I think, as well as being a brilliant action film, the best action film, I think, the king of its box, as Rob puts it, it's a love film, and it's a it's a love film between John McClane and Al, and also between John McClane and the idea of being a policeman or being a hero. And that sequence with Al and his confession about why he's no longer a serving policeman on the beat is central to this idea of it being a love scene between them. And I started writing down all the occasions on which McClane calls Al baby, or Al says to McClane, "Oh, I love you, Roy," and I just stopped writing them down because there are so many of them.
I think there's a modern day echoing of that in Hot Fuzz.
Yes,
in which infamously there was a love interest for Simon Pegg's character, which they decided to cut, and they just literally gave her lines lock, stock, and barrel to Nick Frost,
which makes it much better as a film.
Yes. I mean, I hate to use the phrase bromance because I think it's awful, but that kind of masculine affection. And as I mentioned earlier, I think this is one of the reasons in which I think this is a very culturally important film. You remember this film came out in '88, and the '80s action films are renowned for Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Van Damme. That they are renowned for these films of larger than life. It's kind of known as the hard body era.
Yeah.
In which all our heroes are these perfect physical specimens. They are almost superheroes. Infamous kind of like the build they have. And into this comes Bruce Willis, the sort of everyman. To this day he plays off playing the everyman. And he is broken, he is battered, he is shot, his feet bleed, he makes mistakes. He's in love with his wife and she does not love him back. He's very much this working class hero. And I think that led to a sea change in a lot of the films. I mean, we talked about a bit earlier about Con Air and The Rock, but both of those films, I mean, The Rock is a great example. Nick Cage, who is the hero of the film, is not the action star. Sean Connery is the action star. Nick Cage is a scientist who bumbles through most things.
Yes.
I think that there's a very interesting switch in what I'd call filmic masculinity at this turning point in the late 80s, when we went from having the untouchable, always gets the girl, Steven Seagal body into someone a bit more relatable. And even you can see the echoes these days in the Marvel films. Even someone like Captain America, who is physically almost a perfect specimen, shall we say. But he's very much tinged with a pathos and an everyman quality, and that's where I think we sort of have moved on. And I think that's why this film is so culturally important.
Yeah, I mean, in a film from earlier in the 80s, if they made a Captain America film in 84, for instance, you'd never have the before bit. You'd never have a weedy Captain America. But there's certainly something to his character. There's a reminder of where he comes from throughout that.
And I think that there's more than moving beyond just Bruce Willis. There's some interesting, as you mentioned, masculinity on display. You've got Hans Gruber, who is very much subverting traditional masculinity. He's almost much more playing along the feminine sort of way of talking and way of acting. He's a lot softer. He is obviously the bad guy, but he's a lot softer. He's a lot more sort of feminine in his approach. If you look at the bad guys, you've got I can't remember his name, but the guy who sits on the front desk, who in my mind I always call the cowboy.
Yes, yeah.
And he is almost the iconic American badass. He's wisecracking, but he's basically the lowest of the low in the bad guys. He sits on the front desk, and I think there's an interesting idea around that this almost the cowboy, which is a symbol of American manhood, becomes the running boy of this basically Euro trash villain.
Yeah.
And I think also I can't remember his name, but the yuppie.
Ellis,
who screws up so massively and gets shot because of it. Spoilers.
I don't think it counts as spoilers when it's 26 years old.
I agree, but I think that he almost represents a lot of the 80s, that kind of Wall Street greed of the 80s, and the abject failure of his plan versus the success of the McClane plan. I think there's some interesting ideas there about 80s and what it is to be a man, if you see what I'm saying.
Yeah. An interesting thing I came across when reading up on the trivia behind this film, because I'm really cool, was that the scene with Ellis and Hans Gruber, where Ellis ends up, spoiler alert, being shot, Ellis comes in the room as if he knows Hans, pretending to know Hans, and says, "Hans, Bubby," and Alan Rickman did not know he was going to do that, and the look of surprise on his face and mild disgust is genuinely Alan Rickman saying, "What the hell is this person doing, going off script?" So I quite like that, and it's not, I suppose it's not strictly a masculinity thing, but in general the way that this film plays with expectations. So there's something like that where someone goes off script and they're happy to leave it in because it got that reaction. Alan Rickman being, another spoiler alert, Alan Rickman gets dropped off the skyscraper at the end. But he was famously dropped by a stuntman on the count of 2, so that the look of surprise is genuine because he was waiting for 3. So throughout this, you've got this film doing things with the genre that are not the conventional.
I think there's also a note around that with the twist in the film that they aren't terrorists and they're actually just robbing it.
Yes. That
up until the 80s, especially sort of the Cold War and post-Cold War era, America and Hollywood are very used to clear-cut bad guys. They are terrorists, bad guys. And obviously, as thieves, they're still bad guys. And murderers still bad guys. But there's that muddying of the waters that I think the 80s period certainly helped. I think that, just to take it a little bit wider than masculinity, I think the film says a lot about America and the American psyche in the late 80s.
I was just thinking, when you were talking about that, the Johnson in the helicopter just before they get blown up. So many spoilers here. But
it's Die Hard. People have seen it.
So when one of the Johnsons says to another FBI agent, "This is like," he says, "it's like Hanoi or It gives another name of the Far Eastern city. Makes it clear that he's been in the U.S. military, and he's been in Vietnam, and he's had that experience. And the other FBI agent says, I was in junior high, and then caps it off with some bowdlerized insult directed at this guy. But there's a sense in which this whole film is saying, I was in junior high, arsehole, to the whole to the idea of convention. So
Yes.
the action films would have said, "Yeah, this is like Vietnam. We're going to be all apocalypse now. We're going to fly in with helicopter gunships, and we're going to pop a cap in them." And then this whole film is saying, "Well, actually, let's be realistic. Nobody knows what Vietnam was like, and most people growing up at this point are more likely to have been in junior high at the time than necessarily experiencing in Vietnam."
I would almost take it further than that and say that I think this film's a direct refusal of that ideal. I think if you think about the 80s, you've got the beginning of outsourcing to China. You've got a lot of traditional the American self-image of the sort of the industrial nation is breaking down, and I think it's telling that that it happens at Nakatomi Plaza. It happens at a Japanese company.
Yeah.
You've got his wife who's chosen Korea over him, and gone off to LA to do it. So the setup's very 80s in this high rise. You've got international company. You've got sort of the women's sort of rights movement and sort of the rise of the office bitch, want of a better word. And all of that comes to nothing until the working class hero turns up to save everything.
Yeah.
And I think this film is very much a rejection of a lot of 80s sort of ideas that, that American self-image post-Vietnam, post-Nixon is breaking down, and they don't know who they are anymore because a lot of what they stood on is moving under them. You've got the rise of Europe. You've got the destruction of these old ideals about what it is to be a man, to be American, to be America.
Yeah.
And this film very much, whether we want to agree with its premise or not, is almost a rejection of that and going back down to America. We're working class. It's the American dream with guns, but it's about that one man in the face of obstacles beyond measure, pushing through one by one, building up to winning, basically.
Yes, and there's almost that. To go back to Mad Max last week, there was a moment in Mad Max where you thought, really, they're going to do that? I mean, I'm generally avoiding spoilers, but there is a moment towards the third act of this film where they make a decision that they're going to go and do something, and you think that's not going to be possible. Like, how is it possible that anyone is ever going to manage that? And that is something that you can trace back to Die Hard when as you said, this all-American hero and says, against all odds, I'm going to do this because it has to be done.
Yes, I think there's a sense of duty, and it is, as I say, it is noticeable. I'll just go back to the point that the bad guy, aside from Hans Gruber, the bad guys in this film are the media, are the FBI, are yuppies. These are big things that have been sort of very triumph in the 10 years prior to this film, and it's almost the idea of true grit. That the playbook that the CIA have and FBI have doesn't work, and the slimy kind of Ellis doesn't work, and the invasive TV doesn't work. The one thing that works is this sort of true grit manhood, and I think that I kind of have the sort of the scales of this film. I mean, I love the film, but some of the theory behind it, I do think it can be a bit kind of, yeah, America, yippee-ki-yay, motherfucker, kind of American, while at the same time subverting that quite a lot. And I do think there is a lot of value in the idea of this masculine character who breaks down some of the traditional roles. But I do think there are still some problematic elements of him very much He doesn't like his wife working. He doesn't like his wife having her identity aside from his own. There are some troublesome bits, and obviously it is a film that's solved by shooting people in the face. But I do think it's noticeable that the very last confrontation between him and Hans Gruber, he outwits Gruber.
Yes.
And the earlier interaction when he meets Hans Gruber, and Hans Gruber tends to be a hostage, he outthinks him. So I think that there is an element of, I suppose, subversion of that trope. If you look at things like any Schwarzenegger film, they essentially are being solved by being shot in the face.
Yeah.
And I think, as we mentioned in the Avengers episode, there are problems in those films about everything solved by hitting it hard. In Die Hard, he solves these two situations by just being smarter.
Yes.
And it's street smarts rather than sort of book smarts, for want of a better word.
Mm.
But I think there is value in that.
Yes. Yeah. Also, just to go back to bulk up the idea that this is a Christmas film, and people are probably shaking their heads over this, but the denouement, the way in which he tricks Hans Gruber is by sellotaping a gun to his back, and he does that because he sees a load of Christmas wrapping being left out, and there is a Jingle Bells theme playing when he has this realization. So Christmas saves the day in this. This is my point. I'm not going and saying this is a Christmas film. Just to go back to that.
I would say it's a Christmas film. I would hand the heart to this as a Christmas film. It's set at Christmas. It's about overcoming odds. There is a family storyline. I would say that it would come under the Christmas film.
Oh yes.
Heading.
Oh, I know you're on board. I know you're insane too. I just want to try and persuade other people. I have something before we get to recommendations, which we should do as always at the end. I've got a mini quiz for you, Die Hard quiz. I want to see how much you know about it.
This is going to be embarrassing, isn't it?
Yeah. Okay. So, first actor. Who was the first actor slated to play John McClane for contractual reasons? And
I'm going to say Mel Gibson.
You can have half a point because Mel Gibson was on the list, but it's not Mel Gibson. It's not Harrison Ford, who was also on the list. These names were also turned it down before Bruce Willis took it on. Richard Gere, Burt Reynolds, Sylvester Stallone, Michael Madsen, and Arnold Schwarzenegger all turned it down. But it was first offered to a 73-year-old Frank Sinatra because he had played the same character in a film in the late 60s, I think.
Because it is originally based on a book.
Yeah, that was it. They made a film of the prequel book with Sinatra in it, and then like 20 years later, they had to offer him the role.
And I think that's almost a testament to Willis.
Yes,
because almost everyone else on that list is built on the old archetypes of a superhero action star. And Schwarzenegger in this film would not have been the same film.
No.
And I think that Bruce Willis brings a lot to that role, I suppose.
Yes, yeah. I think, Sinatra aside, and that's a bit of a curveball based on contractual reasons, but all the others definitely are hard men, are big action heroes, like you said. Okay, right. Second, which architect designed the bridge? There's a model of a bridge in Takagi's office. Which architect designed that?
I'm gonna go with was it Lloyd Wright, as he's the only architect I know.
Well, don't spoil it by saying that afterwards. You just got the right answer.
Hey!
And finally, there's the moment at the end when Al shoots Carl, and there's particularly stirring music scoring that moment, and it was originally intended for another 80s blockbuster released by Fox. And what was that film?
I don't know.
1986. Big Fox film.
I'm racking my brains for Top Gun.
No, later than that.
Top Gun's 86.
Oh, sorry, I thought it was 85. No, okay, I'll leave that hanging, and people can.
86. Something was 86. 86 is Platoon.
No, complete.
Aliens.
Aliens is the right answer.
There we go. I'll get there eventually.
Eventually, yes. Good. Right, so
Cool.
we shall move on to after.
Before we get into the recommendations, I've got one little bit of trivia.
Okay.
That means nothing to anyone else but me, and possibly Sam.
Okay.
At my wedding, my wife walked into the chapel to a certain piece of music. A certain piece of music that is picked entirely because it is in Die Hard. The scene when they finally open the safe.
Yes.
And they play Ode to Joy.
Yes.
The big reveal, big glory moment. And my wife likes Die Hard so much that was the song chosen for when she entered the church. For that very reason.
And when I said at the beginning of the podcast that if Rob didn't like it, I would hunt him down, I wouldn't need to. I'd just phone his wife.
Yeah, she would kill me.
Right, recommendations. You go first this week.
I'm going to go a little bit kind of weird on my last one, and I'm going to recommend A Good Day to Die Hard, which I believe is either the fourth or fifth Die Hard film.
Oh, God.
And it's set in Russia, and it's about John McClane going to rescue his son. And it's terrible.
It's terrible.
It's utterly terrible. It basically pisses on any legacy of Die Hard. I would even say it pisses on the legacy of the first three films. The fourth one is equally terrible. Fifth is archetypally bad. And I think it's worth watching because if you like films and you're interested in ideas around films, the interplay between those two and the comparison between Die Hard and Die Hard, Look at Good Day to Die Hard, is interesting because it shows how over time they've managed to take John McClane, this everyman hero, and turn him into the 80s superhero hero. He is invincible. He can take down fighter jets. He is everything that John McClane was against in the first film. He has become by the fifth film.
Right. Yeah.
And I think it's interesting to look at that same character in almost in the same world, and if you can identify the ways in which they've changed the mythos and they've changed the way they've shot it and the story they tell, that's a very sort of almost like a film school way of looking at how to not do this kind of story.
Okay. Do you have any recommendations for good films this week?
The recommendation I would give for a good film would be Con Air.
Okay.
It's obviously a classic, and most people have seen it. But it's slightly more pantomime cartoon than Die Hard, but it is in that same box of an everyman overcoming a lot of obstacles to get to his family.
Mm-hmm. Good. My recommendations this week. The first of these, I suppose, the more action-related one of these is a film from the mid-90s, starring another man who turned down the role of John McClane. Actually, wasn't on that list I gave. Robert De Niro and Al Pacino as thief and detective, and there's a similar sequence in which the bad guy and the hero meet up and chat, similar to Bruce Willis and Alan Rickman in this, is Heat. And I would recommend that, not only for the sort of the thrilling elements of it, the way it's shot is very brooding. It's very, I suppose the nearest thing to it would be LA Confidential in terms of sort of later film noir. But it's also got that scene in which these two characters reveal human sides of themselves. And I think that is one of the legacies of that McClane-Gruber relationship in Die Hard. And the other one is Well, you came up with the TV series a couple of weeks ago, so I'm going to do the same thing. So it's not a film. It's the TV series for which Bruce Willis was most famous. And I looked at it on YouTube because I was intrigued. It's a TV series called Moonlighting about a detective agency, private eye agency. It stars Bruce Willis and Sybil Shepherd. And it's really good. He's a really good actor, and that's something that gets forgotten, certainly by the fifth Die Hard film, when it's all about him being an action hero. But he is really good, and this series, Moonlighting, which he was doing as he filmed the first Die Hard in the late 80s, reveals that side of Bruce Willis, who's really good. It's not something that everyone remembers about him.
No. Having listened to your recommendations, I'm actually going to throw a cheeky third one in,
Go for it.
which is a film called Ronin.
Okay, yes.
Ronin is De Niro starring?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so Ronin is a Robert De Niro film, and it's about an ex-CIA agent who is now a gun for hire, a Ronin essentially, trying to steal things. It is, as Sam said, it plays with that humanising element. You've got Robert De Niro, who starts off very hardcore sort of business, and ends up with an emotional connection to one of his other colleagues, and it's an amazing action film on top of it. I mean, that's one thing that we haven't mentioned a lot about in this film, is that aside from all the analysts and all the sort of theory around it, it's a great fun film.
Yes, yeah.
And Ronin is the same. It is an amazingly well shot, especially for its car chases, an amazing action film, but it certainly has the heart and has more of a sort of 3D characters than you'd expect from this kind of film.
Great. Well, we've witted on far too long about action films and other things to do with that, so we should probably end it there. And do get in touch with us. We're on Twitter at Prestige Podcast, and I'm on Twitter at Life Academic.
And I'm on Twitter at Kaiju Industries. And we will see you guys next week.
Bye.